Good morning, everyone. We are live. A few technical issues this morning. I rebooted my computer and lost all the connection information for StreamYard, working with my producer to get it all together. And they kept showing up with very interesting um, messages regarding my microphone. Oh, my goodness. Well, we'll get this thing live on all of our Facebook and Habit Finder and on Ogmandino's YouTube channel. We'll get this thing live here in a moment and we'll jump in and take off today. Oh, it's so funny that today's topic is perspective, getting a new pair of glasses. And the very first thing we face is I can't get logged into StreamYard. Well, so you just walk through the pieces, right? It's going to be as fast as it's going to be or as slow as it's going to be. And I could spend all my time panicking over everybody who's waiting to get started this morning and wondering where the live is. And I'm going, oh, what an interesting experience to set us up for this very moment in time. So we're going to take on perspective. Two things. One, Og Mandino writes about this in scroll number 7. I will laugh at the world. So let's just all have a good laugh this morning on this particular topic, because he says this. Do I really know whence? So here we go. Will my concerns for this day not seem foolish 10 years hence? I mean, will I even remember that I couldn't get the technicalities taken care of to get onto StreamYard on time this morning, 10 years from now? Why should I permit the petty happenings of today to disturb me? What can take place before the sun sets, which will not seem insignificant in the river of centuries? That's the first thing in perspective, just getting a perspective. The second, I had a conversation with my daughter a number of years ago. She was going to college at the time, studying psychology. And in the summertime, she would work for a company that did wilderness training with youth. And these, in her wilderness program, they were generally very challenged youth. Some of them had criminal activity. And they would roll them all up at night, take their shoes away from them so they wouldn't run away. And she would be out there for 10 days on and a few days off, and 10 days on and a few days off. And she came home and we were having this delightful conversation. And she just said, Dad, I can't do this anymore. I just can't do this anymore. I'm hating my life. Now, that's not unusual when you're 19 years old to have those kinds of moments. I said, you can do anything you want to. What do you mean? I said, you're healthy, you're intelligent, you're physically active. You could join the Army. You could almost take anything you wanted to. The recruiter would give you your choice. You join the Army, and you could do that this afternoon. We'll take you down there and get you signed up. She paused for a moment and went, wow, could I really? The very first thing we want to understand in perspective is that we have choice. Now, some of those choices we may not want to choose, but we are totally at choice. Sometimes the stress comes when we don't believe we have a choice. We're driven by obligation, have to, need to, should, must, and even fear of consequences if I don't. Just take a look at whatever it might be right now that just has you overwhelmed, unless you don't have one of those things. If you don't, maybe we need to get you something. But there's so much happening right now with COVID and volunteer homeschooling. If you're a mom trying to run a business, have a companionship, whatever it might be creating that overwhelm right now, just pause for a moment and ask yourself, what are my choices? Just to get into the frame of mind that you do, in fact, have them. Sometimes we just get overwhelmed. It was interesting. I was shopping for something for the last 3 weeks, and I was feeling this tremendous sense of urgency and had 4 or 5 places where I could buy it, and we're trying to get the best price. And and one day I woke up and I said, I don't really need to buy this. What am I doing? So I'm just going to let everybody know that the market is really strange right now. I'm going to give it a chance to just kind of mellow out, and I'm going to take a breather. And I released that project. I just released it. And all of a sudden, it was replaced with this enormous sense of peace. Then I got proper perspective. I'd gotten so caught up in the excitement of getting one of these things that I got caught up in so many details. And I'm already doing 80 hours a week coaching and running a company and speaking and family and everything. And I was putting this on top of it. So take a breather just for a moment and ask, is this important? Now, I've got a lot of good friends right now in the process of home purchases. That creates an enormous amount of stress. By the time if you have a property that needs to be sold, and all the work you do, and you get it staged, then you get it sold, and then you go through all of the inspections, and you have to do the work on that house to get ready to get that closed to go in the next house, and you've got all the problems with that house, and you're trying to work through all of these things. That is not something you necessarily want to step back from and go, we're not going to do this. Market's really crazy right now. Probably important to pursue if you found the house that you really love, and that's what you really want. What you want to do in that case is not breathe. You want to surrender. One, you just breathe. You just let it go and breathe. This one, you surrender. Surrender to what? Sometimes we push on something so hard that we can make it happen. It's been my experience when I push really, really hard on something, it's usually a signal that something isn't quite right. So we step back and go, I really want that. For example, a house. I really want that house. And there may be a problem that needs to be overcome, a fence line challenge or a sewer challenge or something. A title issue, a cloud on the title. There's so many things that can happen in the purchase of a piece of property. And the surrender is, I'm going to be living in this house for a long time. I want these things cleaned up and correct. It's not about me being nice to the seller. It's not about me being kind. You do want to be nice and kind. But this is going to be the home you live in, and you don't want to inherit a problem that is the seller's responsibility. And so sometimes negotiations can get really nasty. You don't want nasty negotiations. You want crystal clear agape discussions when you're buying something like that, where you just step back and go, this is what this house needs. If you're willing to clean that up, which as a seller, you're required to do, or I'll find another home. Now, sometimes that's sufficient to have them say, I don't want to go through this whole thing. It's cheaper for me just to get it fixed. But it puts it in proper perspective, because sometimes in those moments we take upon us responsibility that is someone else's. Let us surrender that responsibility, and in some cases, surrender to a power greater than ourselves. To me, that would be my Lord and Savior. And to say, your will be done. I've done all that I can do, and if you've done all you can do, and just let it unfold. I don't know about you, but I've sometimes pushed something so hard and then retrospectively, with that perspective, regretted it and wished that I hadn't. that sense of urgency. Like if we don't move here, where are we going to move? That sense of urgency that can create a skewed perspective. So breathe, surrender. Now relationships. This can be really tender. You know, when there's a lot going on, we can get so caught up in it that we can't see. And it's critical, especially when it is impacting a relationship, that we enter the third piece, which is going through it with our eyes wide open. Because we get blinded by urgency, blinded by frustration or anger or hurt. And it's important that we step back and from a greater perspective, see it, eyes wide open, asking questions of something like this. What could I learn from this? Could this moment be the answer to all of my prayers? Could this be the pivotal moment in the relationship? Is there something that I need to be aware of and shift? Is there something my companion needs to be aware of and shift? And there's usually both, right? But eyes wide open to see it unlike we may have ever seen it before. And be able to say, wow, what a great moment for us. Because whatever's creating this has been creating something like this for a long time. How about if we just open our eyes wide open and take a look? Gives us some perspective. What can I learn from this? Second, and I believe this one is the most powerful. Not the most, as powerful. Who is going to need me to be this acutely aware of this pain in the next couple of weeks? Because life sometimes creates moments to teach us, and as often to prepare us. So we want to have our eyes wide open when we're going through, especially relationship challenges. Be quick in those to let go of the need to feel hurt, the need to be frustrated. Sometimes we carry hurt, and it's not that it's legitimate or not. That's not the point. We just carry it, and we can't let it go. And we want to, with our eyes wide open, let that go so that we can see. Now, interestingly, in perspective, I'm going to draw something for you. Can everybody see this? This is the line in the distance, and this other is a wall. I'll give you an example of how this works. We have a wall and we have a line in the distance. Everything goes toward that line. This is probably the best version of it. The bottom one. You see that? There's a distance in the back. Every line goes toward that point. And if they go all toward that point, then we get a correct perspective. You ever notice when you look at a 2D object, it's got dimension to it? The dimension comes from perspective. What is the perspective? Where is the distance? Are we looking at it from this angle or this angle? You could very literally take a 3D object and put it on a 2D surface and look at its perspective. and it shifts. Beautiful thing about perspective when we have our eyes wide open, or we're surrendering, or we recognize that we're at choice, we get to see something from several different angles. Mine was a very trite thing compared to many of the things that many of you are struggling with, that I've been dealing with for the last couple of weeks. But I chose to breathe. Remember that one? Just breathe. A choice. I chose to breathe. When I chose to breathe, I could look at it from several different perspectives without any emotional input. Is that really going to serve? Now, when I was in it, caught up in everything, oh man, it was the most exciting thing. But from a perspective, no, it wasn't. What a great moment to be able to step back from something that we're caught up in and see it for what it is. I felt really angry. From this perspective, I'm now looking at the other person and seeing why they might be reacting that way. And I chose to react this way. I can now let go of my anger from this perspective. For me, I can let go of that frenetic need to have that. Oh, I don't need that. No. Let us practice this kind of perspective because we truly are a choice. We do want to breathe. We want to surrender to a power greater than us if we've done all that we can and not push something beyond. And we're going to want to have our eyes wide open so that we can see it for what it is. And I might add, of all of the things I've said, is in this moment to see it and then go, I don't need that. To go, I could choose a different place if I need to. Oh, I don't need to be angry. Oh, I can choose to do this. It's my choice. My daughter, what happens if you go back into the wilderness because you want to? You get to, you choose to. You can bless these children. You've got a gift. Go back and serve them and see how many exciting moments you can create with 15 teenagers. Want to, get to, choose to. She had a wonderful summer, by the way. Can we do this? Perspective. Let's see if we can't get a little better perspective. Sometimes we've created this. Step back, eyes wide open. Let's take a look. I have a choice. I can just breathe. I can surrender. I can learn. I can gain empathetic reference points. Let us gain perspective. Thanks, everyone. Have a blessed day.